My name's Emily Parker, and until last summer, my relationship with my stepfather could best be described as neutral. He wasn't a villain in my life. He wasn't abusive or mean or even particularly distant in a hostile way. He was just there, like a houseplant in the corner of the room. You know it exists. You might even water it sometimes. But you don't exactly talk to it or miss it when you're gone. That's how I felt about Jack. Jack married my mom when I was 12. She met him at work. He's a paramedic, and she's a trauma nurse. They bonded over chaos, I guess. The kind that comes with sirens, scrubs, and way too much bad hospital coffee. Jack came into our lives like a gentle wind. He didn't push. He didn't lecture. But he also didn't try that hard to get to know me either. He kind of hovered around the edges of my life. Polite, present, but not personal. I didn't hold it against him, at least not consciously. My real dad passed away when I was 8. Heart attack. Sudden. One moment, he was lifting me up onto his shoulders in the backyard, and the next he was gone. After that, I put walls up. Tall ones. Reinforced with sarcasm and silence. Jack never tried to climb over them. And I never invited him in. The road trip changed that. It was the middle of June when my mom got the call that her sister in Oregon had fallen and broken her hip. Aunt Rachel lived alone in a little mountain town called Pines Field, beautiful, peaceful, but very remote. My mom was knee-deep in hospital shifts and couldn't leave, so naturally, the job of taking me to stay with Aunt Rachel for a few weeks fell to Jack. I had just turned 17. Old enough to take care of myself, not old enough to rent a car. So I was going to need a ride. I begged to fly, even offered to take a bus, but the nearest airport to Pines Field was 2 hours from her place, and Jack insisted on driving. You two could use the time together, my mom said at dinner, like it was some sort of bonding opportunity we should be grateful for. I just rolled my eyes and poked at my pasta. 2 days later, we were in his dusty gray SUV, with a cooler of snacks, a half-hearted playlist of classic rock, and about 900 miles of awkward silence ahead of us. The first few hours were exactly what I expected, me staring out the window with my headphones on, Jack trying to make small talk every so often. "So, you like photography now, huh?" he asked at one point. I nodded. "Yeah." "What kind of stuff do you shoot?" "Just whatever."
People. Light.
"Weird shadows."
Cool.
Silence. We stopped at a gas station around hour 4. He came out holding 2 drinks. One was my favorite peach tea. I hadn't told him I liked that. I guess he'd noticed. I took it without looking at him and mumbled a thanks. Back on the road, the scenery changed. Flat lands gave way to hills, then forests. Tall trees lined the roads like quiet sentries. The further we got from the city, the more peaceful it felt, though the silence inside the car was still loud. Night fell somewhere around the Idaho border, and we pulled into a roadside motel. The kind with neon signs that flicker and a front desk that smells like lemon cleaner and old cigarettes. The lady at the desk handed Jack one key and said, "1 room left. 1 bed." Jack cleared his throat and looked at me. "I'll sleep on the floor." Inside the room, he spread out a blanket and used his duffel bag as a pillow. I felt bad watching him lie down like that.
He wasn't a bad guy.
Just not my dad. "You can take the bed," I offered. "No way. You're the guest of honor." "More like hostage," I muttered, but I smiled a little. We slept, with an invisible wall of awkwardness between us. At some point in the night, I woke up from a nightmare. It wasn't graphic, just this overwhelming fear, like drowning in invisible water. I sat up, gasping. "You okay?" Jack whispered from the floor. I nodded, then remembered he couldn't see that. "Just a dream." "Me too," he said. "You want some water?" He handed me a bottle. We didn't say anything else. But that exchange? It stayed with me. The next day, something shifted. We stopped at a roadside diner for breakfast. He ordered coffee black, of course. I got pancakes. As we ate, the conversation started to flow more easily. "I used to come through here on long hauls when I was your age," he said. "You were a trucker?" "No, but I helped my uncle one summer. It was awful. And amazing." I laughed. "That makes no sense." "Exactly." He told me stories about driving across the country, seeing weird roadside attractions, and the time he got chased by a goose in Nebraska. I told him about my school play and how I once fell off the stage during rehearsal but still got up and kept going because I didn't want anyone to see me cry. He laughed and said, "Resilience. That's what that is." And for the first time ever, I felt like we weren't just killing time. We were actually connecting. The SUV broke down later that day, right in the middle of a rainstorm. No cell service. Middle of nowhere. Jack tried to fix it but couldn't. We were miles from anything, and the nearest ranger station was about 2 miles back. I started to panic. My hands got cold. My thoughts scattered.
"We'll walk," he said.
"In this rain? We've got jackets. We'll be fine." Halfway there, I slipped in the mud and twisted my ankle. I tried to hide it, tried to keep walking, but he noticed. "Get on," he said, crouching.
"No."
"Emily." I climbed on his back. Rain soaked us both. The only sound was the squelch of wet sneakers and the occasional thunder in the distance. I rested my chin on his shoulder, too tired to keep up my defenses. "You're not bad at this," I whispered. "At what?" "Being, around." He chuckled. "I'm flattered. I think." We made it to the ranger station. Got help. Got the car towed. Eventually made it to Aunt Rachel's. By the time we got there, we were muddy, drenched, and exhausted, but laughing. I stayed with Aunt Rachel for 2 weeks. Jack drove back home alone. When I returned, he picked me up from the bus station. I walked off the bus and into the waiting area and saw him immediately, holding a cardboard sign that said, "Emily, professional backpack rider." I laughed so hard I almost dropped my suitcase. That was the moment I realized something had changed. Over the next few months, things between us kept shifting. Subtle at first. He'd ask about my day, and I'd actually answer. I'd text him funny memes. He'd send back a million emojis trying to figure out how to respond. It became normal. My 18th birthday came around in September. I wasn't expecting much. Mom had a late shift. I figured maybe a cake from the store and a quiet evening. Instead, when I walked into the house, I found fairy lights strung up in the kitchen, candles glowing, and a homemade chocolate cake, slightly leaning to one side, sitting on the table. Jack stood there in a ridiculous apron that said, "Kiss the cook," holding a lighter. "Happy birthday, Em." My chest ached in the best way. We had dinner, just the two of us. Watched old movies. And then he handed me a small gift box. Inside was a silver compass on a keychain. "For your next journey," he said. "Wherever it takes you, remember, you're not alone." It wasn't expensive. It wasn't flashy. But I carried it everywhere after that.